Here's a picture of the first human to land on the moon, but after this picture was taken, doubts started to emerge. Things like the flag waving in the picture, even though there's no air in space, or the absence of stars in the picture, even though we are supposedly in space. Or how the shadow changes direction in every picture. And the most important point, which is what raised the most doubt, after this moon landing, no other human went back to the moon or even tried. Why? Did humans really land on the moon? Or was it all just staged? To answer this question, I need to give you a brief history lesson on why we humans even attempted to go to the moon or space in the first place. It all started from a simple challenge, so let's go back in time a bit. We're now in the year 1945, and World War II has just recently ended. The United States and the Soviet Union, which today is called Russia, were the two largest powers in the world, locked in a Cold War. Around the year 1950, science began to advance more and more, and scientists around the world discovered that we could launch something into space and keep it orbiting Earth, just like our natural moon. We could call this thing a satellite and use it to collect data about our planet, like weather patterns, maps, and even to predict when a hurricane is coming, and so on. This idea was purely theoretical, but the United States decided to make it a reality. So, in 1955, the US announced that it had started working on the first artificial satellite in human history. As time passed, people started waiting for this satellite from America. Suddenly, the Soviet Union launched a satellite several months before the US. Its name was Sputnik, and thus the Soviet Union became the first to launch an artificial satellite in human history, marking a major Soviet advancement over the US. And this is where the spirit of competition between the two nations began. A few months later, the US also launched its satellite.
Been assigned the mission of launching a scientific Earth satellite.
It had many more sensors than the Soviet satellite and was 100 times more useful. Thus, the US regained the lead. It was now the Soviet Union's turn to respond, and they came up with the idea of sending a dog named Laika, the first living creature from Earth, to reach space. After that, several other animals were sent to space, and the US also sent animals. This became a routine for them, and it was relatively easy to do. Then came the pivotal moment, the next big challenge, the moon. From our planet, we can only see one side of the moon. The moon is about a quarter the size of Earth. It rotates on its axis and orbits Earth at the same speed. Imagine that humans, for thousands of years, couldn't see the far side of the moon. It was impossible scientifically due to what's called tidal locking, a phenomenon where the moon is gravitationally locked to Earth, always showing the same side. Tidal locking is the phenomenon by which a body has the same rotational period as its orbital period around a partner. So, the moon is tidally locked to the Earth because it rotates in exactly the same time as it takes to orbit the Earth. That is why we only see one side of the moon. Until, for the first time, it was photographed. The Soviet Union did it using a spacecraft named Luna 3, an unmanned spacecraft equipped with cameras to photograph the far side of the moon. With this achievement, the Soviet Union advanced significantly, but they weren't satisfied yet. The first human to reach outer space was also from the Soviet Union. His name was Yuri Gagarin. Yuri Alexeyevich Gagarin was a Soviet pilot and cosmonaut who, aboard the first successful crewed spaceflight, became the first human to journey into outer space. Traveling on Vostok 1, Gagarin completed one orbit of Earth on April 12, 1961, with his flight taking 108 minutes. This achievement motivated the Soviet Union to aim even higher. They tried to send a human into space and have him exit the spacecraft. But this wasn't easy. Numerous rockets, experiments, and attempts were made, but they all failed because every time a person exited the spacecraft, they encountered an emergency due to the pressure. At the same time, the US wanted to achieve this milestone as well. They were conducting Apollo missions without warning. This is a historic picture of the first human stepping foot on the moon, a moment that all humanity was waiting for and eagerly anticipating. But with the spread of this picture, many conspiracy theories began to circulate, and people started doubting its authenticity. Is this picture real, given that no one had landed on the moon before? We all know what can be done with Photoshop and special effects. This gave rise to several theories. How could the flag be waving in space without air? But after experiments, it was scientifically proven that this theory is incorrect because an object stays in the shape you leave it in. You can set up the flag to look like it's waving, and it will remain that way. Also, why are there no stars in the sky while in space? In reality, anyone who knows about photography understands this is 100% normal. Try it yourself. Go to the city, take out your phone, and try to take a picture of the stars. When you take the photo, no stars will appear, because the phone and all cameras are not like the human eye. In a city, the light is strong compared to the faint brightness of the stars, so the city will appear clearly, but the stars will not show up. The same goes for the moon. Since the moon reflects sunlight, it actually shines, and if you try to capture a picture of the sky from the moon, most likely nothing will show, which is normal. The same goes for the shadows on the moon. It's caused by multiple light sources. The moon itself is a source of light, so it makes sense that you would have more than one shadow. And if the moon landing were truly a hoax, the first to call it out would have been the Russians, considering the historical competition between the two nations. On the contrary, today all Russian museums acknowledge the landing, as do China, Japan, India, and other countries. There are high-resolution images from Earth that confirm there are human-made artifacts on the moon's surface. The matter is somewhat real. The last question: why haven't humans gone back to the moon in modern times, despite 12 astronauts having set foot on it? Strangely, the last one was in 1972, during the Apollo 17 mission from the US. After that, no one went back. The main reason is that no country is willing to spend $264 billion just to land on the moon again. We can now send robots and machines to collect samples and data instead, like the robot NASA sent in 2024. So, do you think humans really went to the moon? Share your thoughts in the comments.